Let's get right into it. Number 10, intermittent fasting. Imagine it's the end of the month and your fridge is empty. You skip breakfast because you have to. Fast forward to today, and rich people are paying hundreds of dollars for apps and coaches to tell them not to eat breakfast. They call it intermittent fasting and act like they've discovered some ancient secret to longevity. Poor people have been intermittent fasting since the beginning of time. They just called it being broke. These Silicon Valley types are downloading apps to track their fasting windows while bragging about their metabolic optimization. Meanwhile, someone's grandma who worked 3 jobs and only ate once a day was apparently a biohacking pioneer. Rich people even manage to make being hungry expensive. They buy special fasting teas for $50 a box and zero-calorie wellness tonics that cost more than a week's worth of actual food. Some even pay thousands for fasting retreats, where they basically pay to not eat food. It's like paying for an empty plate at a fancy restaurant and calling it a curated absence of cuisine. Fasting coaches charge $200 an hour to teach people how to not eat. People are paying someone to teach them how to do nothing. The irony is that while rich people are choosing not to eat and calling it wellness, about 828 million people worldwide don't have that choice. They're doing the original version of intermittent fasting, being too poor to afford 3 meals a day. Number 9, Workwear Fashion. Imagine spending $500 on a jacket designed for construction workers just to wear it to Starbucks. That's exactly what's happening with brands like Carhartt and Dickies. These brands were made for people who actually work for a living: construction workers, farmers, mechanics. The clothes are tough because they need to survive real work, not just a brunch photo session. But now you've got fashion influencers wearing heavy-duty work boots that have never seen a construction site. The closest these boots get to manual labor is kicking a Tesla tire when the touchscreen freezes. The wealthy are shelling out top dollar for clothes that were literally designed to be affordable for laborers. Carhartt jackets that used to cost $30 at hardware stores are now selling for hundreds at boutiques. The actual workers who need these clothes are having trouble finding them because they keep selling out to people who think manual labor means hand-washing their cashmere sweaters. Some high-end fashion brands are even making their own workwear-inspired collections. You've got $2,000 distressed overalls that look like they've been through a tough day at work. The irony is, these expensive worker clothes often can't handle actual work. They're basically cosplay for people who want to look like they know what a hammer is. Number 8, thrifting for vintage. Rich people are paying premium prices to dress like they're poor. Back in the day, if you were shopping at Goodwill, it meant one thing: you had to. Now rich folks are calling themselves vintage curators and paying $200 for a beat-up jacket that someone's grandpa probably bought for $5 in 1975. These same people will brag about finding a rare vintage piece that's literally just a worn-out band t-shirt with holes in it. Meanwhile, the actual person who needs that jacket for winter can't afford it anymore because some influencer decided it was aesthetic. You've got trust fund kids in $500 shoes digging through donation bins looking for that perfect, distressed look. And here's the kicker: they'll post their thrift haul on social media like they just discovered electricity. Oh my god, guys, I just found this amazing vintage t-shirt from 1995. Yeah, Karen, that's called a used shirt, and some kid probably wore it to gym class. Rich people have basically gentrified secondhand shopping. They turned "I can't afford new clothes" into "I'm an ethical fashion consumer." And now there are even luxury thrift stores, luxury used clothes. It's like paying restaurant prices for leftover takeout. The irony is that poor people have been sustainable fashion pioneers for generations. They just called it making do with what you have. Number 7, tiny houses. Back in the day, if you lived in a really small space, people would say, "Oh, that's rough." But now rich folks are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to live in what's basically a fancy shed. These luxury tiny homes often cost more per square foot than a regular house. People are paying $150,000 for 200 square feet of living space. That's like buying a designer paperclip for the price of a car. Poor people have been living in small spaces forever because they had to. Now wealthy people are doing it because it's minimalist and eco-friendly. Most of these fancy tiny houses are parked in the backyard of a much larger house. You're basically paying mansion money to be somebody's garden gnome. Look at my $80,000 Murphy bed that folds into a toaster. Meanwhile, people who actually live in small spaces because they have to are like, "Yeah, that's just called a futon, Karen." The rich folks even have tiny house TV shows now. They always act shocked when they discover that living in 200 square feet means you can't have a full-size hot tub and a bowling alley. It's all done while keeping their actual mansion as a backup plan, of course, because nothing says, authentic minimalist lifestyle, like having a spare house. Number 6. Raw water. Raw water might be the most ridiculous rich people trend ever. You're hiking in the woods and run out of water. You're desperate, so you scoop up some water from a stream. That's what people had to do for thousands of years. A lot of them died from it. Now, Silicon Valley executives are paying $30 per bottle for something called raw water. It's literally just unfiltered spring water that might kill you. These companies market it as having natural probiotics. Those natural probiotics are just bacteria that give you diarrhea. Someone took the most dangerous part of being poor, not having clean water, and turned it into a luxury item. People are paying premium prices for the privilege of getting cholera. The same rich folks buying this stuff probably have $10,000 water filtration systems in their homes, but drinking potentially deadly water is now considered a sign of wealth. They saw Oregon Trail and thought, dying of dysentery? Sign me up. They're basically paying luxury prices to experience what it's like to be too poor to afford clean water. Number 5. Industrial lofts. Rich people pay extra to live in what's basically an unfinished building. Back in the day, if you saw exposed brick walls and concrete floors, you knew someone was too broke to cover them up. Those ceiling pipes weren't a design choice. Then rich folks started looking at these spaces and thought, you know what would make this $3,000 a month apartment better? If it looked more like a factory worker's housing from 1920. Now developers are actually spending money to make new buildings look old and unfinished. They're installing fake exposed brick walls. People are paying extra for walls that look like they're falling apart. Those industrial pipes on the ceiling are often just props. They don't even carry water. They're literally there to make the place look more authentic. Some of these lofts cost more to build than regular apartments because making things look unfinished takes a lot of finishing. It's the housing equivalent of buying pre-distressed jeans, but for your entire house. People are now paying thousands to get that raw industrial look that used to mean you couldn't afford carpet. Next time you see someone bragging about their industrial chic apartment, just remember they paid a premium to live in what their grandparents would have complained to the landlord about. Number 4. Canned fish. Back in the day, sardines were what you ate when you couldn't afford anything else. They were literally poor people's emergency food. Fishermen would can the fish they couldn't sell fresh and sell them dirt cheap. But now, walk into any fancy restaurant in New York or LA, and you might find a tin of sardines on the menu for $30. The same tin your grandpa kept in his emergency food stash is now being served on marble plates with fancy bread. These places will open up a $2 tin of fish, arrange it artfully on a plate with some microgreens, and suddenly it's coastal Mediterranean cuisine, and people are fighting for reservations to eat this stuff. There are even tinned fish date nights now. Couples pay hundreds of dollars to sit in a fancy restaurant and eat canned fish. Imagine telling your grandfather you spent $200 to eat the same thing he ate during the Great Depression. The funniest part is rich people aren't even eating better sardines. It's literally the same fish, just served on a fancier plate. Some places even keep the tin on the plate to prove it's authentic. So next time you see someone posting their luxurious tinned fish experience on Instagram, just remember they're eating poor people's food, just with better lighting. Number 3. Nose to tail eating. Back in the day, poor folks couldn't afford to waste any part of an animal. If you got your hands on a pig, you were eating everything from the snout to the tail. The rich people took the prime cuts and threw away the rest. But now those same parts that poor people had to eat to survive are showing up in fancy restaurants. Take beef tongue, for example. Your grandparents probably ate it because they had to. Now restaurants are charging $45 for a tiny portion of braised tongue with some fancy sauce. Bone marrow. Poor people used to suck the marrow out of bones because they needed every bit of nutrition they could get. Today, you'll find roasted bone marrow with artisanal sourdough on menus for $30 a plate. Oxtail used to be the cheapest cut you could buy, literally the tail of the cow that rich folks wouldn't touch. Now it's a delicacy that costs more per pound than a good steak. The funniest part is these restaurants act like they invented something new. They call it sustainable dining or whole animal cuisine. Meanwhile, grandma's sitting there thinking, we just called it dinner. Even pig's feet, which used to be given away for free at butcher shops, are now trendy. They just call them trotters and serve them with a wine reduction sauce. Number 2. Drinking cheap beer. Pabst Blue Ribbon. The beer that went from factory worker favorite to hipster holy grail. Back in the day, PBR was what you drank when your wallet was as empty as your fridge. It was the beer of steelworkers, farmers, and anyone trying to stretch their paycheck to Friday. But something weird happened in the early 2000s. Suddenly, rich kids in Brooklyn started drinking it ironically. They'd pay $7 for a $2 beer just to look authentic. The same beer your grandpa drank to save money was now being served in bars where the bartenders have more expensive mustache wax than your monthly grocery budget. And it's not just PBR. Miller High Life, once called the champagne of beers as a joke, is now actually being served at fancy restaurants. They're charging premium prices for what used to be the cheapest option at the liquor store. The funniest part is when rich people started drinking these beers, the prices went up so much that the working class folks who originally drank them had to find even cheaper alternatives. So next time you see someone in a $500 jacket drinking a PBR and talking about how real it is, just remember, they're paying extra to cosplay as poor. It's like buying pre-ripped jeans, except you can get drunk on it. Number 1. Living off-grid. Living off the grid used to mean you were too poor to pay your electric bill. Now it means you dropped $500,000 on solar panels and a water filtration system that looks like something from NASA. Collecting rainwater used to get you that bless your heart look. Now rich folks installed $20,000 rainwater harvesting systems with UV purification. They took being poor and added Bluetooth. Your grandma had a vegetable garden because she couldn't afford groceries. Now celebrities build $100,000 sustainable micro farms with computer-controlled irrigation systems. They're growing $500 tomatoes. Poor people lived in tiny homes because they had to. Rich people do it because they read an article about minimalism while sitting in their 5,000 square foot house. They spend more on their 200 square foot tiny house than most people spend on a regular house. Poor people just want enough room to turn around without hitting a wall. When rich people do it, it's called going green or living sustainably. When poor people do it, it's just called making do. Poverty is only charming when you can afford to opt out of it. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.